Hi everyone, in this video what we're going to do is we're going to work in one of the most common scenarios in synchronization, and that the scenario is using an existing database. So what is the problem with this? When you have an existing database, it means that there are no delta information for whatever already exists in the database. There are no transactions that you can send to the mobile clients to recreate that information. So, okay, so far, let me show you what I have here, and we will do all the steps together in general. So here I have an application that I created basically using the information in this tutorial. Um, and the only thing that I did basically is to run this command and change the name. So this is basically a clean application, something that you will get when you create an application with this command. Okay, so after that, basically what you need to do, let's try to emulate that scenario. So I will run the Windows application. And before I run it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the configuration string, to the connection string configuration. And well, here I'm going to change one parameter. There is one parameter that is called enable delta tracking. So this, when you use this, let me run it one time, and I will run it without that after that, so you can see the difference. Right now, this is going to create the databases for us because we don't have them at the moment. So let's check navigate. So let's see, it should be using existing database. No, we don't have it yet. Okay, so let's log in at least one time. And right now it's trying to locate the database, and if it doesn't exist, it will create the database. You know that if you've been using XAF or XPO, that's the normal flow. So let's hope that my local DB works, because sometimes it doesn't in the middle of the videos. So let's see what happened here. I think it worked this time. So let me refresh this. And see, we have using existing database, and we can check the tables. We have the user, so let's go to the user information here. We have the admin and the user, and so far so good. If I create something like a product, this will be also here. So let's go to the product table, and we have the product that we just created. Okay, so since we have delta tracking on, every time that we create a transaction, uh, we have this binary information, which are the deltas. So this is everything that happened since the database was created. And since we've been tracking since that moment, everything that we did, we can send it to the mobile clients so they can have the users and everything that we just did. But that's not the scenario that we want to use today. The scenario that we want to use is that we already have a database with data. So what do we do? Because it will be impossible to create these deltas for that. So let's close here everything, and let's start again. Let's delete these databases, and let's try to delete this. Good. So let's start again. Let's close all of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this to false to create some data that is not being tracked by the SyncFramework. So we will not have deltas for that data. And let's go back to navigate. Let's continue refreshing here. And also let's log in the application. Oh well, we're logging already, so Just let's wait a little bit. I hope again that my local DB doesn't go crazy. And it looks like it's working. So let's create a few products. 001 pizza. We always use pizza for the examples. Um, and 002 hamburgers. Okay. So we have pizza and hamburgers. And if we go and check here, we'll have the same two databases. So using existing DB, let's go to the product table and we have the two products we just created. But if we go to the using existing DB deltas, you will see that there are no deltas because we stopped the tracking. Okay, so what do we do now? Basically, um, what you need to do in general is to make a copy of your database and ship it with the mobile application. That's what I mean. When you do that, it means that the master and the clients will have the exact same state. So after that, you can just turn on synchronization and it will basically work. So let's do that. So for this example, what I'm going to use is this tool. Basically, those are the some extensions for the toolbox in either Management Studio or Visual Studio. So I tried to use the one for Management Studio, but it didn't work. I think that my version was different than the required version. So I end up using the ones for Visual Studio, which is this one, and it worked perfectly. And actually, this is a great tool made by this person. Basically, he created a lot of tools for SQL Server CE, SQLite, and SQL Server in general. So check his repository. So kudos to him. So once you download this tool, you can go to Visual Studio. I will stop this. And you have this new view. So you have to go to View, Other Windows, and then you have to select SQLite, SQL Server Compact Toolbox, and then you will see this. Basically, when you start, there are no connections, so you need to add a connection to SQL Server, and I think it's this one, yes. So you need to select a connection that you have done before. So to create this connection, you have to go to View, SQL Server Object Explorer. And then here you have to create a connection to your database in general. So in our case is to this database here. So see, when you go to the other tab, you have that connection and you can go and right click over this and create migrate to SQLite. Like click on migrate to SQLite. And then it shows you all the objects that are here. So you basically select all of them and click OK. And it will prompt you for allocation. So let's go to, well, let's cancel this. We need to copy that database that we're going to create. We need to copy that here in the assembly that is shared by the Android application and the iOS application. So let's open this directory and let's copy this path and let's migrate the database there. And the name will be original data. We're going to rename that afterwards, so DB. So see, now we have this here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the SQLite browser to go and check this file. So you'll see that we copy all the data that was in SQL Server. So if we go and check the products, we have the two products that we created in SQL Server. So everything's fine. I use different tools for this experiment, and this one is the one that I like the most. That's why is the one that I'm using in the video. Because other tools create the same structure, but the data types were different, and there was some problem with the relationships. So this one is the one that basically accomplished everything that we need. So once you have this, in general, um, let's change the name because this is not the name that I want to use. So the name should be the same name as I have some code that I will show you, like the reason of that code, but let's go and check it in the view model. So let's go to settings view model. So in here I have some code, and actually this is the name that I want to use. So let's rename this first. You need to rename it and then make sure that it is embed resource. So it will, when you compile, it will be part of the assembly. So embed resource. Okay, so this is the piece of code that I wanted to show you. So what I do in general here is like I get the path where the database for this application should live, and then I create this variable like with the full path. Then I check if that database exists, and if it doesn't exist, it means that it's the first time that we're using the application. So basically I get the assembly, the executing assembly, I get the resource, I read it, and I save it to the file system, to this path. So basically we're getting the embedded database with the original data and save it in the file system so you can continue using it there. And after that you just continue the normal flow. That's it. It's like really, really simple. Um, okay, so far so good. We have that. Let's build this assembly. And okay, basically that's almost everything that we need to do. So see, it was like really easy migration. So since I did several experiments for this and none of them actually, I mean, most of them seems that they were going to work, but in the end there was always a problem with the data, with the relationship or something. So in the login view model, I added a little piece of code. So in here, basically, created a non-secure object space. So that object space um, is not ruled by the security system. You can just access data with that one. And I create a collection of application users to make sure that I have both application users that exist in the SAF application. Then I make sure that the users, at least the admin user, contains at least one role. Because in some cases, when I migrate the data, everything seems fine, but when I was reading the roles, the count was 0, so the association was wrong. And I just use this code to make sure that it's working. Actually, here I wrote a to-do. You can delete this in production. You actually don't need it. But just for demonstration purposes, I will leave it in here. Okay, so far so good. So what we need to do is to prove the point that I'm not synchronizing data and that we will use the data that is in this file. Let me show you the emulator. So we don't have any applications here, and I will run just the Android application without the server or anything. So you will see that I will be able to log in using the information that is already in this embed database. So let's run this. Okay, the application just started. I had to cut the video for a little bit because I'm using VirtualBox at the moment and I had to turn off Hyper-V and it looks like my emulator was kind of wanting to use Hyper-V anyway. So I restarted the computer. Okay, so where were we? Well, we include the embedded database, and we know that we're going to copy that to the local file system. So here I go to settings, and just to demonstrate that I'm not going to actually synchronize data, I'm going to write anything here. And let me put a breakpoint here, and let's execute this. Save. So now is is going to check in this path if the database exists, and of course at the moment it doesn't. So I'm going to get it out of the assembly and write it to the file system, and then just execute the normal flow. So see, I have not synchronized. This is still um, the default date, like date min in this case, the minimum date. So I'll go back, and I should be able to log in with the SAF user admin, and the products that I created in the SAF application should be here because I included that in the embedded database. So let's log in and see no synchronization time and no server URL because I have not synchronized. I'm using what I ship with the application. So in the products, I have the same two products that I created in the SAF application. So this is how you ship data with your application and how you use an existing database. Your case might be different if you use a different database than SQL Server. You have to have the tools to migrate whatever database you're using to SQLite so you can ship it with the application. So just to demonstrate that this is actually working, before we start the application again, we need to go to the configuration file and enable delta tracking, because so far we know that if we check the deltas database, this should be empty because we have not tracked anything. So let's turn this on in the connection string. And now let's start the application. We will start the Windows application, the Sync server, and the Android application. And I'm going to log into the Windows application, and I'm going to create one more product. So this will be active, of course, and save. So there is one more product here. So if we go and check the Delta database, okay, so here we have it. Let's view this again. See, now we have deltas. So it means that we start tracking transactions. So let's go and check the mobile application. Here we don't have a valid URL to synchronize. If I do this, it will create an error, but I'm able to log in with the data that we shipped with the application. So what I need to do is basically provide a valid URL and do a synchronization. So for that, let's start an ngrok tunnel. And let's copy the URL that is pointing to the 44318 port, this one. So let's go to the mobile application, settings, and let's replace this with something like this, save. Now we're saving again. We will not override the database. because it already exists. And let's synchronize, and you will see that this change. And it's done. So if we go back and log in, we will see the other product that we just created in the Windows application. So we will have soda in the product list. And there you go. So that was everything for this video. Sorry for the interruptions and the places that I cut it, but I've been working with virtualization lately, so I've been playing around with the computer, and that created some little problems. So, well, that's it again, and if you have any questions, you can post issue on the GitHub repository. Thanks again, and see you guys on the next video.